Thank you for joining us tonight for a Meet the Candidates night for the Board of Education, as well as the annual budget hearing for the North Colony Central School District. The Meet the Candidates evening is remote this evening to meet the individual requests of the candidates and provide fair access for all candidates to participate and answer questions from viewers. Right now, we are going to put a link to a form to submit your questions for the candidates. That'll go up on the screen and you'll be able to click the link and submit your questions for the candidates. At the conclusion of the budget hearing, I will take over the program, introduce candidates, allow them to speak, and then we'll go through the questions in the order in which they were submitted this evening. We will provide all of the questions to the candidates at the close of the meeting so that they have all of the questions that were asked by viewers and voters in the district. Reminder, it's open for 10 minutes. So from 7 to 7:10 p.m., please submit your questions via the link. And I will turn it over to Superintendent Kaur to present the proposed budget for the 2022-23 school year.
And I will begin this presentation at 7:10. So individuals now have the opportunity to submit questions.
Commit to, half an hour, 45 minutes of some schoolwork.
Okay, we will, before I'll keep this up a bit more, but we'll be moving on here again. Through 7:10, you can submit them to the address that you see up there. You can also at 7:10, we will also have an option for you to submit questions contemporaneously as we do our budget presentation, and we will answer them at the end. So questions will be accepted between 7:10 and 7:40 regarding the budget presentation. And we will have that slide up here shortly, but those questions may be sent to communications@ncolony.org. That's communications@ncolony.org. So I think without further ado, let's go to the first slide here. And the first slide is the budget agenda for tonight. So again, remember that you can email any questions to communications@ncolony.org. Right, so this is our outline for this evening. We're going to talk about our district mission statement and how we use that to form our budget, our state aid that we received this year, the federal funding that we received from the various coronavirus relief funds, what is in store for this budget with regard to staffing, new programs and initiatives. We'll review the revenue budget, the expenditure budget, and then by statute, we will break down the three-part component budget format. It's just broken down into a different format where we outline program, administrative, and capital allocations for our budget. We'll talk about what our tax levy rate will be and what our actual tax rate, what our tax impact will be for the year. We will talk about the property tax cap that was allotted for North Colony this year. We will do a comparison on tax rate per thousand between North Colony and other major suburban area schools. We'll talk about what a contingent budget means, the proposition that the voters will vote on May 17th, the Board of Education election ballot on that same day, and the voting details. So let's go to the first slide, please. So when we take a look at our budgeting process, we go straight to our mission. And this is a lens through which we do our budgeting. The first part is dedicated to students. And essentially, the mission statement is there. All students are provided the opportunity and necessary support to engage in relevant, challenging work, which contributes to their academic and social growth and development. So we look at, how do we provide for the needs of the entire child, both academically and socially? That's an important factor when we budget. The second part is a realization that the service of education is people-driven. So therefore, we focus on developing the collective capacity of the individuals who are responsible for delivering the important service of education. So when we look at that second statement, all staff, teachers, and administrators are part of a larger learning community working together to build collective capacity in order to provide a high-quality, relevant education for all. We look at how do we build the capacity of people who work with the children. And we know that the teacher and the principal are the biggest single factors in the academic achievement and learning of students. So it's important that we provide them the support that they need. Let's go to the next slide, please. When we look at it, we also have three pillars to continue our work. We focus on academic excellence. So how do we can address the continuity of learning? What is important? What is changing? How do we maintain academic excellence among all our students? Equity. How do we provide opportunity? How do we avoid opportunity gaps? How do we look at our data, to make sure that we're actualizing the important component of that mission statement, that all students are provided the opportunity? We know that we are not perfect and that we are seeking continuous improvement. And so this equity lens is an important lens to guide our work. And then social emotional health, student and staff safety and well-being, very important. We all know that when people feel safe in their learning environment, they thrive. And so that's why that is such a key and critical pillar. Let's go to the next slide, please. In an ongoing pandemic, I think these pillars mean even more. And I think when we look at the academic excellence pillar, we look at what are the lessons of the pandemic. So what did we learn from the pandemic? And what about the return to the school setting in person that will help us to determine what are the most important academic goals for each and every student? Right? The pandemic caused us to focus differently. And so when we focus differently, we focus on what are the knowledge and what is the skills that students need to be successful. Also, we take a look at what are the conditions that promote learning for all learners in the best possible way. Equity. We have to make sure that our learners have what they need. So how do our learners have equal access to all opportunities and support if we're going to actualize that first part of our mission statement? And then during the COVID lockdown and when students were either on full remote or in hybrid situations, we have to take a look at how do we bring our students back? How do we design a learning environment that is safe, that's supportive, it's inclusive? And we know that isolation and the inability to connect were part of the pandemic that our students and all of us faced during that time. So how do we provide connection? How do we share experiences? And how do we build relationships to make school more meaningful? And then we also look at what are the experiences that students require in the return to the building. We're going to use words like levity, okay, joy, and agency, the ability to determine and have a voice in their learning, and also have hope to counterbalance the effects of the pandemic. So we all know that the past 2 years plus have been very stressful on each and every one of us, and in particular our students. So this social emotional health pillar is very, very important. Let's go to the next slide, please. So this is the 2022-2023 state enacted budget. This was enacted by the state of New York. The state of New York had a 7.2% increase in total funding. That's an increase of $2.1 billion. There was a $1.5 billion or a 7.7% increase for foundation aid. We are currently in year 2 of a 3-year plan to fully fund foundation aid. So that's good. You know, foundation aid is the foundation, the fundamental aid that is received by the state from the state of New York. North Colony was not fully funded. And prior to last year, we were funded at less than half of what we were supposed to be funded. We are now on a 3-year course where we essentially catch up to where we should have been. There are other aids that are calculated into the state aid funding, and they are called expense-based aids. So your aid is delayed a year. It's based on how much you spent in the prior year. Transportation aid, the BOCES, or the Bureau of Cooperative Educational Services aid, those are aids that are based, or you are reimbursed at a percentage rate. So for North County, it's about 50% of what we spend, and they follow the prior year. So they continue to be funded at legal levels. About the state, pre-K funding was increased by $100 million, and we will talk about that later in the presentation. And in this budget, new school bus purchases are supposed to be zero emission by 2027, and the plan is calling for that all school buses on the road will be zero emissions by 2035. Now, within that current budget bill that was passed, there were waivers that would allow up to 2 years for compliance. Transportation aid would be available for the infrastructure. So when the conversion takes place to the electric bus fleet, of course, we need charging stations and the other infrastructure that's attendant to meeting that goal. Amortization for buses would be increased to 12 years from 5 years, and leases would allow for 12 years with voter approval. So that was those were the important, really, landmarks of this state enacted budget. Let's go to the next slide. Now, this is how the enacted budget impacted North Colony. So the foundation aid for North Colony, I mentioned that last year we were one of probably 10% of the schools in the state of New York, roughly about 70 schools, who were not we were not even at 50% of our foundation aid, our promised foundation aid. So last year, we were all leveled up to 60%. And so that was a $3.26 million increase. This year, we're leveled up to 80% of what we should be receiving. That was a $6.33 million increase. Next year, we are promised to level up to 100% of funding. And that would be another $6.33 million increase. In universal pre-K, our funding this year, last year was the first year of funding. We received $507,600. This year we are increased to $1,279,800. And just pure eligibility slots, if you allocate 5,400 per student, the slots would be increased from 94 to 37. Now that is not exact and it could be adjusted for other expenses. But I think the biggest challenge for North Colony is going to be finding physical space for eligible students in universal pre-K. So let's go to the next slide, please. All right, federal funding, utilization, and sustainability. So you know that there were various coronavirus relief packages that schools throughout the state of New York received. So there's something called CRISA, which is Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, ESSER, which is the Federal Emergency and Secondary Emergency School Relief, GEAR, the Governor's Emergency Education Relief, and ARP, American Rescue Plan. So CRISA and GEAR combined, the operational period for those goes back to March 13, 2020, extends to September 30th, 2023. So we could charge back Corona eligible expenses from the Coronavirus Relief Fund back to that time. So that is roughly $629,000 of that. In the second funding, which is also the period from March 30th, 2020 to 9/30/2023, there's $5.03 million roughly that were allocated there. And in ARP ESSER 3, again, the period there goes a year longer, up to September 30th, 2024. Basically, at this point in time, that brings us to $3,650,000 and a total of $9,318,997. So that's the federal funding of utilization and sustainability. So let's go to the next slide, please. And you can see the breakdown here. So when we looked at the funding here, there were we could support staffing, we could support teaching, we could support instructional coaching, which we did. We could have support staff. We could hire permanent subs. We could buy materials and supplies. So MERV 13 filters, ventilation, for example. All applied here to the coronavirus relief funds. And then the benefits attendant to the employees that were put in spots. North Colony employed nursing students and certified nurses from Siena College to help support our health offices during the heavy period of the coronavirus surge this winter. We also staffed our testing clinic with those individuals. So when you look at that, basically that accounts for the funding for the $5 million for ESSER 2, for ARP ESSER, the $3.6 million, and for GEAR 2, the $629,000. Let's go to the next one, please. So let's look at what our staffing changes are that are anticipated for 2022, 2023. So we're adding a special education teacher at the high school to meet program needs and maintain compliance. 3.0 special education teachers at the middle school, Again, programmatic needs, maintaining compliance, and 2.0 special education at the elementary school to meet program needs and maintain compliance. At the high school, a school psychologist will be brought in to meet behavioral program needs, and a school psychologist at the middle school will also be there to meet behavioral program needs as well. We're adding a career and tech ed teacher, half-time at the high school, half-time at the middle school. These are popular programs. Enrollment is going up in those areas. Art also, 6/10 at the high school, 2/10 at the middle school to meet growing enrollment needs and program needs. At the high school, we're adding a science teacher. 4/10 of that is to meet enrollment. 0.6 is a new pilot program that's opening up more access to students to do challenging honors level work. So talk a little bit about that later. At social studies at the high school, we're adding a 6/10 staffing member. That's to help out with a new civics pilot program for a seal of civic readiness in the state of New York. Let's go to the next staffing slide, please. We're adding a music teacher at the middle school. Enrollment in orchestra is skyrocketing, so that's to meet that need. We're adding an elementary teacher. We have a kindergarten reserve teacher. We have to see what our enrollment is. If we need that to keep class size down, we will certainly use that. At Bout Hills, we're adding an elementary teacher. So we've been on a gradual progression at Bout Hills to go from 3 sections to 4 sections at each grade level. We complete that sequence this year by adding the 4th section at grade 5 at Bout Hills. We have an innovation program at our elementary schools. And so we are focusing 2 innovation teachers at the elementary program, and they will develop that program at Blue Creek and at Southgate. Math coaching, we have a new math program at our elementary schools, so we're looking at that for district-wide support. Enrollment needs for students who speak English as a new language, that's another 1.0. Because of growing needs, so because of the pandemic, North Colony is a 1-to-1 Chromebook school. That plus the fact that our tech team is now taking over phones, communications. We need a cybersecurity officer to maintain network security over this expanded program and to meet the needs. And then we are keeping a teacher on reserve. And that doesn't mean that we are going to hire that teacher. That means that that position is available should enrollment or program needs demand. So that's the staffing outline. Let's go to the next slide, please. So to sum up, the total staffing cost is $1,946,959. We have budgeting for 20.40 new staff. 5.2 of those are designated as teachers on special assignment. So that means for some of those pilot programs, teachers on special assignment could go into those pilot programs. We would hire a person for 1 year. That person would know those circumstances. At the end, these teachers on special assignment, they could be continued or returned to the classroom depending on need and budget. It is not a permanent staff. There wouldn't be layoffs as a result of that. It would be not permanent and subject to annual review. Let's go to the next slide, please. So new programs and initiatives. So we have a program this year in mathematics. These have no staffing implications. One is a grade 6-8 mathematics pathway. And so this new program is a pathway for students beginning in grade 6 to take accelerated mathematics and algebra in grade 8. There's another course called data science. Data science is available for our high school students as another offering for them to look at statistics, to analyze data. It is a product that was really developed by our mathematics teachers who did some coursework at Stanford remotely over the summer. It really provides another avenue for students to take advanced mathematics at the high school. The science teacher, the 0.6 science teacher, this cost has been captured under the new staffing. I mentioned that. It's a grade 9 program where students are going to be provided the opportunity and the support to pursue honors level work. Perhaps some students who would not previously have been considered for that But this pathway, we're going to have some teachers participating in this program, and we're excited about it because we know here that once students take a biology, and if they are successful in that biology course, there is a much greater likelihood that they will take advanced science and chemistry, either chemistry, earth science, physics. We know that that certainly improves outcomes for students when it comes to going to college. So social studies has a 0.6 teacher on special assignment. The New York State Education Department has designed a program called the Seal of Civic Readiness. Students will do research. They will investigate a community issue or problem. They will access resources from the community. It will involve research. It will involve engagement with the community. And as a result of the completion of this course and the requirements attendant to it, they will be offered the Seal of Civic Readiness by the state of New York. In athletics, and this cost would be captured in the general fund budget, but we're offering additional opportunities for students for about 180 to 200 students potentially. And this really is driven by the fact here that we know that during the pandemic, connection, activity, athletics, music, art, robotics, for example, all those activities are so meaningful for students to make those connections. So we are offering additional team opportunities in boys and girls Nordic and alpine skiing, girls wrestling. Okay, we have a number of girls who participate in wrestling, girls bowling, boys and girls modified tennis. So this is tennis opportunities for 7th and 8th graders. Boys modified volleyball, 7th and 8th grade opportunities there. And girls and boys volleyball assistance to make that experience better for those students as well. So let's go to the next slide, please. So in the state of New York, schools are required to present a balanced budget. That is not like the federal government of the United States, but we have to have revenues that equal expenditures. So when you take a look at it, this is where our money is coming from. So our money is coming from property taxes. There's a dollar change of 1.28 million. That's $90.7 million in property taxes. That's a change of 1.44%. Pilots or payments in lieu of taxes are agreements that municipalities make with various business entities to entice them to come to the area. They're up by 56.95%. Foundation aid is up $6.3 million, 41%, as we said previously. Building aid is up $2.3 million. You know that the aid is starting to flow from our building project that we commenced as a result of the bond that has passed in 2017. So that's the increase in that. Our annexation aid from the Maplewood Common School, there was a 14-year period where we received that aid. That aid has expired. That aid flow has gone. Transportation aid is up by 161,000. BOCES aid is pretty constant, maybe up slightly by 20,000. High cost aid, this is aid for students who require special education students who require special placements. That is down by $140,000. Materials aid, so that would be textbook aid, software aid, and the like, that's up by 18,000 to 609,000. And other aids are remaining constant. So let's keep going here with the state aid. So the state aid part of that is represented. Other additional revenues would be tuition and special education. That's down slightly. That's tuition. North County has individuals who choose to pay tuition to come to school here. But the bulk of that comes from the Manans Common School District. That's a K-8 school district. Probably about 90 to 95% of their students choose to come to North County. And so as a result of that, Manans pays a tuition rate that has been established in North County. So that's the explanation for that. Interest earnings, I think we've all looked at our checkbooks or our savings accounts. There's not a lot there. That's up by $7,500. And other revenue is up slightly by approximately $40,000 to $1.4 million. In our reserves, we are designating $3.6 million of our fund balance. We have a teacher's retirement system reserves that we're designating $245,000. These reserves are the same as they were last year. ERS at $200,000, compensated absences at $50,000, and unemployment at $35,000. Total reserve allocation is $4.13 million. And so our total revenue budget is $134,647,000. It's up $9.89 million or 7.9%. And this balances our expenses. So let's go to the next slide, please. And so when you take a look at our expenditure budget, okay, what our expenditure budget states here is that primarily we are a people-driven business. So if you take a look at staff and salaries and fringes, staff salaries are $73.7 million. Fringes are $34.6 million. That's $108,391,685 of our budget. That's up 6.1%. Textbooks, library books are up slightly to $506,606. Let's go to the next slide, please. When we look at our contractual services, if you go to the bottom line there, so contractual services are at $12.3 million. They're up $884,585 or 7.7%. So you can see our utilities are up by $35,000. BOE services are constant, pretty much down slightly at $4,413. Special education department is up by $168,000. Operations and maintenance are up by $131,000. We all know we've been to the pump lately. Our diesel and gas budget is more than double, up to $580,000 or $310,000 increase. Insurance is up by $17,045. And refunds of property taxes, we're holding constant there. Workers' compensation holding constant. Health services to other districts, $262,000, holding slightly up to $7,000. The tuition we pay to charter schools up by $20,000. We are required to pay that tuition for those families who elect that choice. And all other departments are up by about $200,000. Total contractual services, I said, was $1.3 million, up 7.7%. Let's go to the next slide, please. And so our debt service, okay, so because we are taking on the expenses of the building project, okay, our debt service is $2.3 million. Interfund transfers are down by $150,000. Our equipment budget up by $342,000, and that would be Chromebooks, for example, all our technology. Not just exclusively that, though, maintenance truck fleet, school buses, and so on. And supplies are up by $350,000. I think that just generally reflects the cost of doing business these days. So when we take a look at that, our total expenditure budget equals our revenues, $134,869,647. So you can see that 7.92% is equal to the increase in the revenue received. So let's go to the next presentation. So when we break the budget down, okay, we're required to break it down into the programs, the three-part format. So the first part of the format is to take a look at program. Okay, what are we spending on the students? And that's good. It's 72% of our budget. And you can see that it's $97,133,745. The second part of that, let's go to the second component of it, is the administrative component of it. That includes board, central administration, IT, insurance, school administration, and employee benefits. So that breakdown there is 13.77%. It's down slightly from the previous year. It's $18,567,338. So that's the second part. The administrative component is the second part of the three-part budget format. Let's go to the third part. The third part is the capital component. As stated previously, from the bond project, our debt service is up by about $2.3 million. Property services maintaining at $147,000. Bus purchases are up, okay, by about $350,000 as well. And operations and maintenance are up by about $300,000. So when you take a look at that, we are up to $19,168,564. The capital component has increased to 14.21% of our budget. So let's go to the next slide, please. So how does this impact the tax levy and the tax rate? So it's important to remember that the growth in tax levy does not equal the tax rate. So the tax levy, okay, is how much we're raising taxes. The tax rate is the impact of those taxes. So this year's proposed tax increase is 1.44%, but the estimated tax rate increase is 0.5%. And so that's subtracting 0.94 from 1.44, and that's the estimated assessment growth for 22-23. The assessment growth is based upon the actual brick and mortar construction in the town over the last year. So we have decent growth in the town. That means that it's estimated, this could be a conservative estimate, that we've added 0.94% of new buildings, businesses, and homes on the tax roll. So that will decrease the impact of taxes. But take a look at the estimated tax bill increase for North Colony. It's going to be about $24 for a median taxable assessed home. So North Colony is not at full value taxation. So when you're saying, what is he dreaming about here? There is no home in, it's going to be very hard to get a home at $172,000. That's what it's assessed at. Its market value may be $300,000. So if you take a look at that, it's less than 60%. But the impact of that would be $24 for the entire year, $2 a month, or if you want to take a look at it that way, 50 cents a week. So let's go to the next slide, please. So this is the property tax cap. It's a complex formula, and I won't go over that with you, but it essentially is a formula here where all these factors such as pilots and capital exclusions are factored into it. And if you look at that bottom line there, the tax levy limit for 22-23 is $646,538. Now, that represents the maximum limit that North Colony could go to raise its taxes without having to go to a supermajority vote. And that supermajority vote would be to go to a 60% majority. If you are at this limit or lower, you just require a simple 50% majority. So our tax levy limit, where we could have gone to get that simple majority, we could have gone to 3.59%, almost 3.6%. Our actual levy limit is well under that by over 2%. It's at 1.44%. So we are coming in well under the property tax cap. Next slide, please. In looking at the full tax rate comparison, North Colony compared to other suburban districts, Saratoga Springs, who has the benefit of 2 racetracks, is the lowest full value tax rate per 1,000. We are the second lowest, and we are at $15.61. And that is how we compare to our neighbors. So let's go to the next slide, please. So what is a contingent budget? A contingent budget is a budget that occurs when it can occur when the budget is voted down once, but it has to occur after a budget has been voted down twice. So under New York state law, a contingent budget, if that event happened, if it was defeated once and the district decided to adopt a contingent budget, or if it was defeated twice where we would have to have a 0% cap. And then we would have a budget shortfall of $2.03 million. And then we would have to reduce program staffing, use more fund balance, or do a combination of both to make that happen. And we would also be restricted on what equipment we could purchase, what could be allowable capital expenditures, and how our facilities could be used by outside organizations. Let's go to the next slide, please. So what you vote on May 17th is the expenditures of the North Colony Central School District. You vote on the expenditure plan. Proposition 1, when you go in the voting booth, will be, shall the proposed budget of expenditures of the North Colony Central School District for the 2022-2023 school year in the amount of $134,869,647,000, and for the purposes shown in the statement of estimated expenditures adopted by the Board of Education, be approved and the amount thereof be raised by a levy of tax upon the taxable property of the school district after first deducting the monies available from state aid and other sources. So that is what you will be voting on when it comes to budget. Let's go to the second slide. When you take a look at the budget summary, this is 21-22. The budget was $124,977,067. Our budget increase is up to $134,869,647. It's an increase of $9,892,580. The percent increase is 7.92%. Our debt service accounts for $2,316,721, 1.85% of that overall increase. The levy increase is 1.44. We said the allowable cap was 3.59. We're way under that. And the impact on the taxpayer is 0.50%, 0.5%. Go to the next slide. You will also, on May 17th, vote for the Board of Education for the seat held by Ms. Paula DeRazio. DeRazio occupied her seat for 20 years and served our community with selflessly. And so now we are voting for a 5-year term for Mary Albert, Donna Watson, and Marcie Thompson, or a write-in. This is the way the ballot will appear. So you vote for one member of the Board of Education. These are voting facts here. So the date again is Tuesday, May 17, 2022. It is held at the Goodrich Building. Okay, it's from 6 to 9 p.m. Absentee ballots are available to any qualified voters who will be out of town or unable to vote in person due to illness, disability, or duties related to primary care of ill or disabled individuals being admitted to a patient in the hospital or the risk of transmission of COVID-19. All those individuals can vote by absentee ballot. First have to fill out an application. The application should be received by the district clerk by May 10th if the ballot is to be mailed to the voter, or by May 16th if the voter delivers it personally. And the applications can be found at that web address there. You can contact Jane Dawson directly at the number 518-785-8591 with extension 3126. You can email the district clerk at districtclerk@county.org. And applications need to be returned in by mail. An eligible voter is anyone who is 18 years or older, a U.S. citizen, or a district resident for at least 30 days prior to the vote, and have a valid ID if you have not voted. Let's go to the next one. And so right now, before we proceed to the Meet the Candidates night, so let me see here what we have here. So we just have a couple of budget questions here. From a viewer. Is there any line item or money allocated to focus on child care assistance for before or after care programs due to the bus driver shortage that is caused by the workplace environment? So taxpayers do not have to foot the bill for the change in school times and transportation. North County has not funded child care in the past. Certainly, we realize that is a strain. on families, but we do not have plans at present to cover the cost of childcare, and nor have we ever covered the cost of childcare. What is the district doing to improve transportation? We are recruiting drivers. We are paying for their training. You probably are well aware that training and driver recruitment is a problem not just for North County, but throughout the region, the state, and the United States. So we're trying to incentivize that to make this a more attractive option for our drivers. Are there any other questions out there? I understand that there are no other questions at this time here. So again, voting occurs on Tuesday, May 17th. Polls open at 6 a.m. and continue to be open through 9 p.m. The voting takes place at the Goodrich Administration Building, located at 91 Fiddler's Lane. So if there are no other questions at this time, I believe we can probably move to meet the candidates tonight.
Thank you, Joe. Go ahead.
I think at this time, we said that we board members and central office will go off camera so that our public can focus on the candidates.
Thank you. So I'd like to extend by about 10 minutes just to give the allotted time that we had agreed upon for this evening to answer questions submitted by viewers and voters. We're here tonight to learn more about each of the three candidates, their purpose for running, and their commitment to the North Colony school community. Each candidate has been asked to prepare a statement. They have 3 minutes to present their statement, and we're going to go in ballot order. So we're going to start with Mary. Mary, you can unmute, and I will keep time here, and I will just let you know when you're running out of time or if you get close, and then when you're done, we'll move on to the next candidate. Okay? All right. Thanks, Mary.
So I'm Mary Albert. I'm the parent of 2 children who attend North Colony schools. My family moved to the district because of its reputation for special education services when I was trying to find better support for my child who has autism. I was seeking overall academic excellence as one of the things I was looking for in a district. I'm a former teacher. I'm a current PTA president. I'm a current Girl Scout co-leader. What distinguishes me from the other 2 candidates is the work I have been doing in North Colony in this district for years. The work that demonstrates that I listen and I positively advocate for children, parents, and teachers. I have done this in my role as a parent. I have done this as a PTA leader, as a member of the Principals Advisory Committee, and in my advisory capacity as a member of the District Budget Committee. I have no personal agenda. I have no political agenda. I attend board meetings. I understand the magnitude of the governing responsibilities of the Board of Education. I care and I show up for families. My background is uniquely suited for decision-making because I've been a parent of multiple neurodiverse children, a former teacher who knows the importance of proper training and resourcing for staff, a PTA council leader who has experience of listening and supporting needs across our district. Last year, I ran for Board of Ed, and I was 4 votes from being your representative. I genuinely care, and I have a love and a gratitude for helping the parents, staff, and students here. It would be absolutely wonderful to have the honor to serve you more and to be the champion for our students and their needs across our district. Thank you.
Okay, next I'm going to ask Donna. Okay, Donna, no, she's ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Donna Watson, and I am excited to be a candidate for the seat on the North Colony School District Board of Education. I'd like to first take a moment to thank the Board of Education, Superintendent Core, Ms. Dawson, and the North Colony Communications team for making it possible for me to join this event virtually. While I understand a remote option is not ideal, I will do my best to convey who I am and why I am so passionate about serving as a member of the North Colony School Board. I'm joining you this evening live from Helsinki, Finland, where it is 3 a.m., where I have the distinct honor of representing the United States of America as one of 8 school district leaders to receive a Fulbright Fellowship to Finland this year. I've spent the last several days touring Finnish primary and secondary school systems, colleges, and teacher preparation programs, all while collaborating with international colleagues to find real solutions to global challenges facing schools just like ours today. If elected, I believe I would bring a unique perspective to the school board, one that combines the insight and perspectives of a parent who has been actively involved in North Colony schools for the past 17 years, and one that also draws from a long and successful career as a teacher, director of curriculum, special education director, and finally, assistant superintendent. As I have shared every chance I get, I'm the proudest Bison mom of 3 Shaker graduates, Kirsten, Jacob, and Ryan Watson, and a current Shaker freshman, Ethan Watson. If you know me or have collaborated with me in any way over the years, you know that I work tirelessly on behalf of not just my own children, but all of the students and families in our community. As your representative on the North Colony School District Board of Education, I will work hard for you. I will ensure that parents and community members have a real voice in the educational process and that they have the opportunity to engage in meaningful, reciprocal, thoughtful dialogue. I will work to ensure that district programs and services best meet the needs of the students who go to school here now, whether that includes more opportunities for acceleration and the earning of more college credits, or a more systematic approach to interventions and supports. No 2 children are the same, and so no single path works for them all. Finally, I will strive to ensure that teachers and leaders have the tools and support they need to respond to the academic and social emotional needs of all of our students. Aside from student government in high school, I have never run for any elected position in my life. I have no political agenda, and I was not tapped by anyone to run for this seat. I am humbled and proud to be supported by so many of my own former students, now North Colony parents, my neighbors, my friends, colleagues from all of the districts in which I have served students and families in some way. And I think that that really says a lot. I am running because I care and I want to help and I want to be a positive contributor to the team. I think it says a lot, and I would appreciate the opportunity to serve the community that I love so much in this way. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Donna. Marcie?
Hi, everyone. My name is Marcie Thompson, and I'm a former elementary school teacher and graduate of the College of St. Rose, currently as a human resources specialist at a government level. I am also a member of Grace Fellowship Church in North Colony, where I've been involved with many volunteer projects based around children and our community. Over a decade ago, roughly, I had the opportunity to go on a missions trip to Venezuela, where I served families and orphanages who were desperately struggling. I have family and I have very close friends who have and have had children in the North Colony School District. I decided to run for our school board because the more I listen to our community, the more I see a pattern of our community really wanting to be heard. As a member of your school board, I will be the voice of the parents and the community. One of my biggest strengths is that I'm a really good listener. I hear that parents want to be heard, that they want to trust and agree with what is being taught to their children. I hear parents want to see the curriculum and they'd really love time to review it before it's implemented. I hear that parents want more transparency and academic focus, such as, math, science, reading, and writing. I hear that parents want full confidence that all of their children's strengths and learning levels are accurately challenged and improved upon. I hear parents want to provide life skills such as ideologies to their own children at their own home. And regarding tax dollars, I also hear that the community wants more transparency on the budget. They'd really like to see, rather than just line by lines, they really want more transparency, specifically in this day and age with inflation, which I'm sure we can all relate to. Also, I'm a fresh face here. I'm not connected to any administration or the current system. I've spent enough time in North Colony to hear from the community that they really want to see some changes. And I think my time is almost up. I want to be sure to, I have a website. I don't know if you can see this. Okay. But I would love for the parents and the community to go to my website. I have a parent portal there, and I would really love to hear your concerns and comments. And I'd like you to remember, as a member on your school board, I will be there to be your voice.
Okay, thank you, Marcie.
Thank you.
So we're going to get into the questions. I'm going to go through the questions that were submitted between 7 and 7:10 a.m. I'm just going to go right in order, and I am going to jump around so we don't go in the same order every time with the order on the ballot. The first question, I will start with Donna to answer. And that question is, what is your understanding of the role of a school board member?
Well, I have had the privilege of working with school board members for 29 years. And the last 22 years, I have been a district level administrator. So I've had the opportunity to work very closely with school board members. And I've also participated in some of the training offered by the New York State School Board Members Association. I feel that the role of the school board member, first and foremost, is to represent and share the thoughts and concerns of our constituents. So I live in the community. My neighbors talk to me. My friends see me at the market. I see parents all the time in the schools throughout all the many ways that I volunteer, through the years with my children. And so I think first and foremost, the role would be to share the concerns. And really, I feel like for the community, their concerns have to be my concerns. Even if I don't agree with them, I think it's important to bring the concerns to the table so that all perspectives, opinions, and ideas can be listened to and considered as decisions are made at the district level. So I know, being on the school board, you are not running the school district, but you are certainly having a voice in the decision making, and you're working collaboratively with the team to do the best work for children.
Thank you. Marcie, do you want to respond? The question again is, what is your understanding of the role of a school board member?
Hi, yes. I believe that these school board members are there to be really guided by the will of the people in the community. And I see the structure of it kind of like I don't know if you want to say like a three-legged stool. We have our administration, we have the teachers, and we have the parents. And if one of those legs kind of break off the stool, then it's going to be really unbalanced. So it's also keeping things balanced. Thank you.
And Mary?
Okay. So I look at it two ways. So the first thing is you absolutely have the important role of listening to families in the community. It's important because there's so many different families and different students. Not only do you have to listen actively, but you have to put yourself in all of those different shoes, because different parents are going to have different perspectives. But at the same time, you have to understand the state standards and what the state is in control over versus what the local is in control over. So when you look at the definition of what a school board is, it has to do with overseeing personnel and properties, employing the superintendent, submitting the proposed budget, approving the curriculum, empowering the personnel and the staff at the school, because we're not day to day carrying out everything at the school level. We're at that higher level. But then there's also state standards. So school districts also have to follow state standards. So if the state has a certain standard, we have to know also what is within our purview. So I think I would make a good board representative because, being a former teacher, being a parent, listening to perspectives. Also, as a special needs parent, I have taught an advocate. I have talked to so many parents over the years, and it's more than just listening and perspectives. So, for example, you have a parent who has a child that has a life-threatening allergy, and that parent is coming to me with a concern about, my child has this allergy and they could die at school. How is my child being kept safe? Then you might have another parent that's going to come to you and say, they have this social concern post-COVID and they want a certain type of party. Well, I have to make sure that the systems in our school, I'm listening to both parents, but I have to listen to all sides to form an opinion, because it's about safety of our students as well as listening. It's about being able to put yourself into everyone's shoes and go in without preconceived notions.
Thank you,
So
Mary.
that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next question, we'll start, Marcie, you can answer first. What should public schools be doing to support their LGBTQ students and other LGBTQ members of the school community?
Well, that's a good question. I want to say that I support the rights of every single student, and that all students deserve to feel safe, and they all deserve that same opportunity to enjoy their school experience and feel supported and feel welcome. And how I think that they can be supported is by being listened to and having that experience to, like anyone else, be respected and, again, feel welcomed.
Thank you. Mary, would you like to go next?
Sure. I think I'd like to tack on to something that was said earlier about when there's safety in schools, students thrive. And I think that is the most important thing for supporting not only the LGBTQ students, but all students. And that's really the role of the board. It's every student needs to feel supported and safe. And really, a lot of the things that do today is around the extracurriculars, like, school communities, helping schools fit in with clubs, making sure that there's a culture of understanding at schools, that, everybody is friends with each other, no matter who you are, no matter what your background, no matter what your culture. We are friends. We are friends at school. We keep each other safe. We respect each other. It's about a culture of respect, understanding, and dignity for everyone.
Okay, thank you. And Donna?
Whoops. Are you there?
You're good. Yep, we can hear you.
Thank you. So I believe, and not just I believe, I practice in my role, leading with compassion. I believe there is no place for hate in our schools. And I think our students need allies who affirm their identity and who provide any social emotional supports that may be needed in any case, regardless of any type of sexual orientation. I feel like schools need to be welcoming environments. And I feel like some of the reason that I think we're getting questions like this is because there isn't enough dialogue, and people maybe don't even understand some of the ways that schools are working to improve a culture of acceptance and validation for all students. And I think there are a lot of misconceptions about things that might be happening in the school. And I honestly think the best thing that we can do is have conversations and I think when we do, we realize that we're all pretty much in agreement that we want everyone to feel like they belong. We want everyone to feel validated and affirmed in their identity and orientation. And we want our schools to be a place where social emotional learning is taken care of, as was mentioned in the budget earlier, so that students can get to that academic and career-based learning.
Thank you. The next question will start with you, Mary. How do you understand the meaning and intent of the 3 pillars of the district's mission statement? Academic excellence, equity, and social emotional health. I'll say that again. How do you understand the meaning and intent of the 3 pillars of the district's mission statement? Academic excellence, equity, and social emotional health. Go ahead, Mary.
So for academic excellence, I think it's that we are having a curriculum that is rigorous and that, is challenging students at all level, but also understands children at different levels. So making sure that we have programs for special education, making sure that we are meeting students at their level and providing them what they need to get a fair and a free, appropriate education. For equity, I think it's that everyone is supported and treated the same across all. There's no special treatment or different system for, based on different students. It's really about everybody has the opportunity to learn. Everybody is safe. Everybody is, supported there. When you come to social emotional, it's that there is systems for social emotional support. So there are guidance counselors. There are we have our standards of support when there are behavior intervention plans, systems and roles at the school district in order to support what children need when they have emotional needs, when they have academic needs, and so that is equal across all students.
Okay, thank you. We'll go with Donna next.
Hi. So I believe the question was, what do I believe the intention of the pillars are from the district? And so I would say the academic excellence intention is very clear to me. My husband, Jake, and I moved here. We built a home here because of the academic reputation of the school and the excellence of its programs. So I think academic excellence, the intention is to continue to provide a rigorous program. I think there are some ways that we can improve that. I think that we can certainly work to have our students leaving Shaker High School with far more college credits than they are earning, particularly students who may not be taking advantage of some of those classes right now. And I think at the elementary level, our multi-tiered system of support is very inconsistent building to building. And I think there are ways that we should be able to assess students, know where they are, and exactly know how to respond to their needs instructionally. And so I feel like there is some room for growth in terms of our RTI, our multi-tiered system of support and intervention, so that's consistent building to building and that everybody knows exactly how it works. I think the equity goal, I'm not really clear about the intention. I did hear in the board presentation tonight that there was going to be some changes or program enhancements around identifying students who have typically not accelerated. And so I believe that would be part of the district's intention, but I honestly haven't read much. There hasn't been much. I know the district hired 2 equity coordinators. I haven't read much in terms of the district communication about what they're doing or what that work is like. I do believe that equity work is critical for schools. It's important that we're doing it. I think we should be looking at our data, and equity work means gender differences. It means, equal opportunities for English language learners and students with disabilities and students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged. I mean, there's a lot of different ways. And I think it's about looking at the data for areas where we do see inequity in the data in North Colony and coming up with an improvement target and a cycle to say that by the end of the year, here's where we would like to see this, and sort of measuring that data. I haven't seen that. It may be happening, but that really hasn't been communicated to families. So I think there is some confusion around that. And I can't really speak to the intention of that.
Donna, you're over the 2 minutes, so I'm going to stop you there. That's okay. That's all right. And Marcie, we'll move on to you to answer the question.
Hi, okay. So regarding academic excellence, North Colony is known for being a great academic school district. And I also, when I think of academic excellence, according to the mission statement, I also know that North Colony is very big on professional development for teachers and meeting all learning styles. That also comes to mind. And I also believe we can always come up higher with excellence, adding more college credits. I also believe that even when we think of equity, we think of the same opportunities for all children. And not every child is book smart. And I think that there are other vocational schools that we can be sending children to. I mean, I went to college. I loved books. I still read books. I read probably a book every 2 weeks. But like I said, not every child, and this kind of comes into play with equity, not every student is into books and book smart, so to speak. And I think that kind of looking at vocational programs, so that those kinds of kids who are better with their hands, they want to learn like a trade. Hairdressers. I have a friend who owns a hair salon. Hairdressers can earn credits by going to a vocational school and start their own salon, making a 3-figure income. Or an electrician, they're very hands-on, and I think everybody knows they make very good incomes. Okay, I see that sign. So I have like 30 seconds left. All right. So, and then the social emotional learning, I know that we have psychologists and we have counselors in the school, and that's definitely a plus. I just feel like there's a lot of trends coming out of it. And what I hear from the community is that, they just want to understand, they want more transparency on what programs are actually coming out of SEL. And the parents especially would like more transparency on that, so they know what their children are looking at and what's available to them and what they have options. And I'm done.
Thank you, Marcie. Okay, the next question, we'll start with Donna. How will you manage situations where what's in the best interest of the school district is not in the best interest of your employer or other groups of which you are a member?
I guess I'm not sure what you mean by that question. So how will I handle situations where the best interest of students are not consistent with my employer? Is that what the question was?
How will you manage situation where what's in the best interest of the school district is not in the best interest of your employer or other groups of which you are a member?
Well, I think that for the most part, the groups that I belong to and the place where I'm employed, any decision that's in the best interest of students is going to align with them well. I mentioned earlier that on the board, I would be sharing the concerns that folks have and, in my community that I might not necessarily agree with, but I do think it's important for every opinion to be at the table. I think at the end of the day, I would hope that the board as a collective would look at the data, would think critically about the decision that they're about to make. And I believe as long as the decision is in the best interest of students, and as long as we can clarify why we're making a particular decision and be really transparent and have conversations with people about why we're doing it, I really, I would have no problem making a decision that somebody else didn't agree with. I mean, it's like when you are making a decision in your family, and sometimes your your children don't agree with it, but you're going to look at all the evidence and you're going to have the best interest of students always at heart. And you're going to make your decision based on considering lots of input and looking at the data. And I think in the end, a decision made in the best interest of students stands. And I think that as long as you're voting your conscience and you're doing what you believe to be the right thing, that I think there would never be an issue.
Thank you. Marcie, could you answer the question next, please?
Could you repeat that question
Sure.
again, please?
Sure. How will you manage situations where what's in the best interest of the school district is not in the best interest of your employer or other groups of which you are a member?
So I too, I would also agree that, making decisions in the best interest of students and their parents are number one. And I have no problem if somebody doesn't agree with me. I'm going to be, I live my life with integrity, and what I say is what I mean. And, the reason why I won is, or I'm sorry, the reason why I'm running is because I have a lot of time in my schedule. I've made time in my life to do this, to really be a voice for students and for families. And so there really wouldn't be a problem for me either.
Thank you. Mary?
So when I think about the groups I'm involved in and where I'm employed, I don't really see it being a conflict. I currently work for the retirement system. If there was a vote that was considered a conflict of interest, I would abstain from the vote for ethical reasons. I'm going to be honest about that because, again, it's very important to have integrity if you're on the school board. I really don't see working for the retirement system being like something where that would weigh in. When I look at the other groups that I'm involved in, the other groups I'm involved in is PTA and Girl Scouts, which are all about supporting students and families. So again, I really don't see any conflict there. And like the other candidates said, I lead myself with integrity, respect for others, good morals. So I would always advocate for things where there was facts and information to support a decision. A school board has to be transparent always and has to always have facts and data in decision making. It's not about one person's concept or one person's idea. It's the data and the facts about decisions. And if you have data and facts and you have integrity, then your decisions are always strong.
Thank you. The next question, I'm going to start with Marcie for this one. What should public schools be doing to support minority students and other minority members of the school community?
I would say just with any group of, it's interesting because when I used to teach fourth grade, that's the grade I taught. And periodically, and you can ask any of my students to confirm this, but periodically, I would probably say three times a month, I would put down my chalk and my dry eraser, and I would look at all their faces. And I would tell them, and I meant it from my heart, that I absolutely loved that all of them were different. I loved that they looked different, that they had different personalities, that they had different styles of dress, that, they had different voices. And I would tell them because otherwise my job would be so boring. And so I think it's, I think it's very important to validate every single student and human being. And I think that's across the board for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mary, we'll have you go next. What should public schools be doing to support minority students and other minority members of the school community?
So to me, the number one thing is treating everyone the same. Treating everyone the same, no matter what your cultural background, and really just leading that by a model and an example. To me, that's a number one thing. You can think about minority students in different ways too. There's economic minority as well, supporting people, making things fair so that, if you talk about equity of expense, if you talk about an economic minority, making it so that every student can participate in extracurriculars, making sure that every student feels respected, making sure that it's really that model of treating everyone the same way all the time. Yes, we're all uniquely different, but just, not seeing... we're all uniquely different, but I treat everyone the same. It's really that golden rule that we all were taught when we were younger.
Thank you. Donna?
Yes, thank you. I believe that public schools have a responsibility to look carefully at our data for opportunities and outcomes. And when I look at the North Colony data, we do see some discrepancies in our outcomes based on subgroups, and which is pretty consistent around the state. And so I think part of our responsibility as public school districts is to really look at the data, look at the graduation rate by subgroup, look at our 3 through 8 testing, where we see that there are subgroups that are not performing as well as others, and then targeting our intervention, as I mentioned before, to really try to remove the barriers for students so that all students can be successful, regardless of which subgroup you're in. I feel like we also have a responsibility to make sure that our classroom libraries are full of books that represent the cultures and identities of our students. I also feel like we have a responsibility to teach history with multiple perspectives of it, particularly those that have been marginalized or excluded from that story. And so I feel like we would want to ensure that our curriculum, our instruction, and even our assessment practices are all aligned to really ensure that all students are thriving as learners and reaching their full potential, regardless of which subgroup they are from.
Okay, thank you. This one will go in ballot order again. So Mary Albert will go first. Do you support the proposed budget?
Yes, I support the proposed budget.
Donna?
I emphatically 100% support the proposed budget. And I have had some folks reach out to me who were upset or frustrated by some things and indicated that they were going to actually vote against the budget because they were unhappy about something. And I urge them to please not do that, because although it's everyone's right to vote any way they wish, I think the only one hurt by that are the students. And so I did urge that person to please support the budget. I think we can be very proud of the fiscal management that's been happening in our district. I think there has been sound fiscal management. And I think, as Mr. Kaur said earlier, the bulk of the budget is for programs and for students. And I think we all feel really proud of that budget. And I think we can all get behind that budget. So 100% emphatic yes.
Thank you. And Donna? I'm sorry. And Marcie, I looked at your name and said the wrong one. Apologies.
No problem. I feel like I would have to research it a little bit more. I am a researcher before I make my decisions. I would like to say yes, of course, But I do feel like I would definitely want to research it a little bit more before I voted yes, but I likely would. So,
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to continue in ballot order for the next question. Reminder that these were submitted by viewers and voters of tonight's Meet the Candidates night. The next question is, how many sexes are there? Mary?
So my answer to that question is really that's irrelevant for when it comes to a school board candidate. A school board candidate is making decisions about the schools, biologically, there's two sexes, but I think that's not part of the school board and what we do. So that's my answer.
Okay, thank you. Donna?
Oh, I think I already was unmuted. I believe there are two biological sexes, male and female, and I do believe there is a small, percentage of individuals who are born with sexual organs of male and female, and so that would be the biological answer about the sexes. I think that some of the questions really are not about how many sexes there are, but how many genders there are. And I think that we're learning a lot lately. And, I think that gender is really the way that students see themselves in relation to the world. And I think there are more than two. And, I feel to some extent, I agree with Mary that it's not up to a school board member to declare how many sexes there are, but to ensure that however students identify, again, that our school systems and our schools are welcoming and affirming and validate all students, especially those who identify differently.
Thank you, Donna. And Marcie? You're muted here. You got it?
okay. Yeah. So me personally, I believe that there are two sexes. At the same time, as I say that, I think that we should work on accepting people, no matter what their background, no matter how they see themselves, no matter their skin color, no matter how they grew up. I just feel like we really need to respect other people, which I do believe that our community really does. And I think that's, acceptance is a big thing. Definitely causes kids to, when kids are feeling more accepted, they're feeling more comfortable, they learn so much better.
Thank you. The next question is, what are your views on dress codes? And I'm going to start with Donna, who just unmuted, so she knew I was going to call on her.
Thought following the pattern. So, I think dress codes are important. And I actually oversee the district committee that's in charge of the dress code in my district. And I think that students should feel that they can dress in a way that expresses who they are. And so we love to see, student self-expression in the dress code. I think where it becomes a distraction to the learning is where sometimes, we need to have conversations where something might be too revealing or, not quite appropriate. So I do think that a dress code is an important piece of, setting the expectations for how we come to work, how we come to school, and that we're there really primarily to focus on the learning, and that, clothing and accessories can be an expression of who you are, and that's wonderful. But, when it becomes a distraction because it isn't meeting with the dress code, I think that's where we need to talk about things and work together to figure out what's happening.
Okay, thank you. Mary?
I think I agree with pretty much everything that Donna said. You know, expression is important. I know when I was younger, for a period of time, I went to a school that required uniforms. And one thing about having to wear a uniform every day is that it eliminated a lot of that distraction. Having regulations around schools that prevent that distraction with clothing. And there's lots of different distractions that can happen with clothing. So I think that it's important that there is an enforceable dress code. I think that it needs to be fair. And I also think it needs to allow student expression of who they are.
Thank you. And Marcie?
I agree with Mary and Donna on that as well. You know, I think that's, I mean, one of the things I used to love about my fourth graders is that they all had different styles. Different styles of clothes, different styles of hats. They all had different, you know, different colors they loved. And, some people want to have 3 earrings, some people want to have, 5. And I think that as long as the students are somewhat tasteful in their clothing and, like was just pointed out, that it's not distracting, it's not too revealing. I think that would be definitely acceptable. And if anything occurred where something was too revealing, I think that's definitely when a conversation might need to occur between the student and the parents.
Okay, thank you. The next question, Marcie, we'll start with you. What experience do you have with making hard decisions, especially with decisions that might not be popular?
That's a really good question. I feel like I really feel like much of our life is making decisions. And, we grow up and much of the time we don't agree with everyone because we are so different and we all have different opinions. And, 6 people can be in the same meeting and everyone can hear something different. Can you ask that question again? I'm sorry.
Sure. Oh, that's fine. What experience do you have with making hard decisions, especially with decisions that might not be popular?
That's such a good question. And I'm trying to think of something. I know I've had like so many life, decisions that I've had to make that have been difficult. Different choices. I mean, even when I decided to go to the College of St. Rose, a lot, and being that young at that time, there was a lot of pressure to go to 2 other colleges that some of my friends were going to. And I ended up choosing St. Rose because of the prestigious reputation that it had. And I was going for elementary education. And I kind of had to grow up pretty quickly at that age and kind of tread things alone on that road while I watched a few of my other friends end up going to the same college.
Okay, thank you. And Donna?
Thank you. I have had to make a lot of difficult decisions in my career as a district leader, as a member of the cabinet. I can think when I was working in Skodak as the director of special ed and the director of curriculum there, it was during those difficult budget years of 2009, 2010. And so we had to make cuts. And that is very difficult to do because we didn't feel like we had a lot of extra. And everything that we were looking to cut was something that was important, an important part of the district. And so that was a very difficult time. And I would say that the only thing that made the decision easier is, being a strong leader and being transparent in the process, inviting input and perspectives, diversity of thought. So I would say what helped in that regard is not making the decision in a vacuum or just saying, here's what I think we should do, but really listening to people, considering all the facts, looking at the data. And again, that student-centeredness perspective, always looking at, what can we remove that's going to have the least impact on students? So those are difficult decisions. I've also been in situations where I have had to cut teachers or support staff or bus drivers or leaders. And, it's a very, very difficult situation. And sometimes you don't have a choice. The budget times are good right now. And so a lot of districts like ours are adding positions, which is great. But I think when you face difficult decisions like that, I think as long as you can be thorough in your work, invite as many perspectives as possible, be really transparent so people understand, the process that we're facing, the challenge that we're facing, and then use data the best you can and try to minimize any impact on the students. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Donna. And Mary?
I feel like I have a lot of experience making hard decisions. I have been, in the workforce well over 20 years, close to 25 years or more. And for a lot of my career, I have been a manager. I work in information technology, and some of the support when I work in information technology is 24/7 support. I have managed a lot of times when I had to manage on-call programs where I had workers that had to work on holidays, but I had to maintain a system and I had to make sure that people were on call to support a system. So sometimes, you have to be fair, you have to have transparency in your decision making, and you have to make sure that people understand the decision that's being made. Additionally, also as a technology specialist, I've been involved in change management for software. A lot of times you have an organization with many departments, or if you're working in a state with many agencies, lots of people have ideas for improvements, and you only have so many resources and so many things that you can do. So you can't always accept all projects that people want you to do. So you have to prioritize, you have to be transparent about your decisions. And I think that's the most important thing about making hard decisions, communicating hard decisions, is you need data behind the decision making that you're doing. You need transparency so that the people that you lead understand the decisions that you're making. You also need clear communication where you're getting good input for your decisions. When the harder the decision, the more data and the more input you need to make a good decision.
Okay, thank you. We did go over by 10 minutes because we started about 10 minutes late. So that was the last question for this evening. More have been submitted, and as stated at the beginning of the evening, we will provide a list of all of those questions, including the ones we asked this evening, to each of the three candidates. Thank you to everyone tuning in to hear more about the three candidates running for the Board of Education. As a reminder, the vote is on Tuesday, May 17th.
At this point, are we reading our closing statements?
I had not, and I was not aware that there were closing statements to be read. I don't believe all candidates have a closing statement unless I'm wrong. I plan to conclude the evening without a closing statement. Thank you to Mary, Donna, and Marcie for joining us this evening or early morning, depending on where you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.